Hello, and welcome to Eyes on Success, a weekly program covering a wide variety of topics of interest to people with vision loss. I'm Nancy Torpey.
And I'm Pete Torpey.
And we decided to make Voxmate as a stepping stone, for people to get somewhere quickly and then have, less fear of technology going forward. So the way we think about Voxmate is a middle ground between having nothing and going, deep into screen readers.
So if you find the number of gestures needed to operate your smartphone are a bit daunting, this is the show for you.
We'll speak with Gleb Zevkov and Katja Danilova, founders and developers of the Voxmate app for Android that offers an innovative solution to using these devices and in particular is geared towards people with vision loss and total blindness. And towards the end of the show, they will give a short demonstration of Voxmate so you can see how it works. But first for our tip of the week. This week's tip comes from Gleb Zevkov.
So one thing I discovered working on Voxmate is that it's really easy to lose track of your work and you forget to get appropriate rest. Everybody needs sleep, and there's this wonderful book called Why We Sleep, and I recommend it to everyone. There's a lot of things you might find are very counterintuitive, and sleep is tremendously important for everybody's performance. And especially if you are visually impaired, because some of your signals get mixed up if you don't get the light. And I've been on a strict regimen of good sleep for about a year and a half, and it has made a tremendous difference in my life.
I think that's useful for all of us.
You are listening to Eyes on Success. Success, success, success. Success.
Let's start by meeting Gleb and Katja and learning about what motivated them to develop Voxmate.
Well, we have two people that we're talking with today, and maybe we'll start with you, Gleb. You want to introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and where you're from?
Hi, I'm Gleb Zevkov. I'm the principal developer of Voxmate, and I'm from Estonia.
And our second guest is Katja. Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Hi, I'm Katja Danilova, also from Estonia, and I'm co-founder of Voxmate.
And we'll talk a bit more about Voxmate in just a bit, but can you tell us how you two got together?
So we met 6 years ago, and since then we are a couple, and we live here in Estonia together. And it just happened to be so that because my father became blind, we also started working on Voxmate together.
Oh, so you do have a connection to blindness and working with blind people, and that was the inspiration for Voxmate, I take it?
Exactly. So some years ago, I guess 3-4 years ago, my father unexpectedly lost his sight, and he had to stay in a hospital for a while, and he wanted to call us, to listen to the radio, to audiobooks, and maybe to news. And then we just had to dive into assistive technology and into technology for the visually impaired. And so this is how we initially came to the idea of creating Voxmate as well.
Were you both app developers beforehand?
No, I was a software developer for many, many years, and Katja used to run a non-government organization here in Estonia. And I think it just was a good match from the point of view of, a technical developer and a non-technical co-founder. So I think that's how it kind of started.
It sometimes does take those diversity of skills to get such a product or service off the ground. Yes.
Yes, I think so. It's like, there are some things that it's just easier for me to do. And then there are some other things that it's just easier for Gleb to do. And so when we put our minds together, I think then, we can come up with really great ideas.
And Voxmate is one of those.
Well, I really hope that people will think so after they try it. Because, after giving a try to multiple assistive technology devices, let's call it this way, with my father, we even had to learn screen readers ourselves so that to be able to teach him, we discovered that actually they might be quite complicated for some people. And then we thought that maybe we are just in a position to create something different, something that could be used day one after vision loss. And at the same time, that's something that could be very intuitive, because we finished with just 4 gestures. And then this intuitive solution might be interesting even for people who are visually impaired for much longer than a couple of days. And so I hope that we, came up with this solution that actually will find its way to people's hearts.
Eyes on Success is made possible in part by our corporate partners. Underwriting pairs the impact of targeted marketing with the integrity of community goodwill.
Learn more by sending an email to hosts@eyesonsuccess.net.
This week's focus topic is the Voxmate app that is designed to make operating a smartphone easier, especially for people with vision loss.
In the introduction, we talked a little bit about Voxmate and gave some hints about what it is, but maybe you can give us a little bit more of a precise idea of what was the exact problem you were trying to solve with your dad becoming blind.
We discovered that learning to use Talkback or VoiceOver was pretty much impossible for Katja's father. It's not that he is less intelligent or anything like that. He's just not tech savvy enough to pick it up.
And there are a lot of gestures and complicated movements to learn, I would guess.
That's right. And the metaphor of exploratory navigation is not for everyone. When we were learning to use VoiceOver ourselves, I started multiple times, with a goal in mind. Like I would say, okay, so let me start the music player. Let me get to a particular song. Let me do a particular thing. And although I am very, aware of how these UIs are set up and how they work, it was still a very hard thing to do without, peeking every once in a while. And so we figured that, we teach ourselves and then we'll do these kinds of lessons for him. And it went all right for a while, but he couldn't really pick it up. He couldn't get to any useful state with it. And then we decided, let's do some basic stuff like audiobooks. This was our first idea, audiobooks and news. We decided, let's just put his newspapers and his audiobooks into accessible range for him. And I started, doing a prototype on a Raspberry Pi and had a large numpad to it. And one thing led to another. 2 years later, we're doing 20-something apps in a completely different metaphor.
So for those who don't know, Pete is totally blind and I'm fully sighted. And every once in a while, I use his phone to do something. And frankly, using adaptive technology, if you don't need to, is just very cumbersome. But if you need it, it's enabling. And so, I can see why you had trouble learning, why Katja's dad had trouble learning. But if that's the only option, you kind of bite the bullet and learn.
And we decided to make Voxmate as a stepping stone, for people to get somewhere quickly and then have, less fear of technology going forward. So the way we think about Voxmate is a middle ground between having nothing and going, deep into screen readers. And we think that this metaphor will enable our users to kind of get into the technology as well.
So we talked a bit about the complexity and number of gestures needed to run some of these smart devices and how that can be intimidating for particularly people who are not so tech savvy. How does Voxmate address this problem with a simpler interaction?
So Voxmate requires only 4 main gestures. You swipe up, down, left, and right to navigate, and Voxmate talks to you. And so basically you just need, for example, if you would like to go into the news, you just go from the main menu, swipe once down, swipe right, swipe right, swipe right, hop, you are in the news. So that was the idea. There were a couple of additional gestures, but most of the things can be done with just these simple 4 gestures.
So pretty simple and sort of menu driven in some sense.
Exactly. It's like a tree, or like a menu. So it's quite easy to go from one place to another, and then you not always know that you go left to get back. So it's just if you're stuck in some place, you just have to go left, 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 and you're back in the main menu.
And presumably you get audio feedback every time you make one of these 4 gestures. So you don't have to remember, you said how to get into the news and it was 5 consecutive gestures, but I assume you get feedback after each one, so you don't have to remember those sequences.
Exactly. Every time there will be something. For example, it would be news, world news, Sky News, and then, title of the article. And all of that, TTS will read back to you.
Now, this system must work in a very different way because you have to sort of interact with the operating system very differently than VoiceOver or Talkback would. And I take it this app is written very differently than other apps in terms of how it works with some of the functionality. Can you describe kind of what's under the hood and what makes it work?
So Voxmate, we think internally of Voxmate as an app platform. It's a way of writing audio-first applications. And that's, the nitty-gritty behind it all, that we would create this system on top of a system. In that way, Voxmate is more of an operating system. It just uses Android, so to speak, to kind of interoperate between its applications and Android's. The cool part about that is that Voxlets, or now we call them Voxmate applications, but the apps inside Voxmate app are completely independent. They can be developed by developers who are not necessarily working together, and they can be distributed independently as well. For example, if somebody has a problem and we need to fix a bug, we can push this solution to all devices quite effortlessly. Another way to think about Voxmate is like a web browser for audio content. And this web browser, every time you go with the web browser to a web page, you get a new version. Very similar experience with Voxmate.
So a while ago, you said that you started working with VoiceOver, and now you said Voxmate is available for Android, which of course uses Talkback. Is it available for both iOS and Android, or did you just switch from one to the other?
Well, we are a small team, so we needed to pick a direction to go with. We picked Android because it allows us to take over the system in much greater capacity. For example, on Android, you can take over the default dialer and you can take over the SMS functionality of the phone. On iOS, you can't. So we kind of started with the broadest possible approach. We're now working on an iOS version. So hopefully it'll come somewhere next year. And we hope we can port a lot of applications to it. A lot of things won't be possible on iOS. So for example, we won't be able to take over your phone functionality.
When you use the Voxmate system, I take it if you're using something like the music app, you're not using the music app that ships natively on the Android devices. You're using something that Voxmate is giving you as a music app. Is it the same app, or is it that just modified by you, or is it a separate music app altogether?
Oh, that's a great question. So no, we create our own experiences and our own apps. Our applications are audio-first applications. And that means, well, we have to recreate the functionality if it exists somewhere else. But on the plus side, it's quite easy to do, because if you think about app development today, maybe 80% of it is working with graphics and UI elements. So in that vein, we were able to create over 20 applications ourselves in a span of a year.
Wow, that really sounds like a lot of heavy lifting. Are you creating all of these apps yourself, or are some of them coming from third-party developers?
Right now, we're doing everything ourselves. We're just 2 people working on this, so it's quite a headache. But we are going to open up the platform at some point, hopefully by the end of next year, and invite other developers on board with us. So when you want to create a small app for, to open your garage door, Voxmate should be the most natural platform of choice.
And just to be clear, you mentioned that you're primarily working on audio type apps. So this wouldn't be applicable to something like mail or text messaging, I guess.
Well, why not? I mean, you can create audio first experience for mail applications as well.
Oh, in terms of reading the mail and dictating content.
Right.
So you said you've got about 20 applications in Voxmate already? What are they?
We divide all applications into categories. So, for example, one of the categories is entertainment, and there we have audiobooks, news, podcasts, radio, and YouTube. The other type of applications would be under the category of utilities, for example, and there would be OCR and the notes and the simple connections with Wikipedia called What's Nearby. Some other section would be social, and there we have, for example, Telegram. It's an instant messaging app, and also our own audio forum. So that is the place where you don't have to use TTS or STT. It's just your voice. You record a message, you leave the message, and then people can reply to a message with their voice as well. And this is a place where you can, ask us for some help or ask anybody else in the community, be it help with Voxmate or anything else. I think I'm missing some apps, but this is roughly it.
That's a great idea to have a particular app where users of the system themselves can interact to ask questions and figure out how to work the system.
Well, I think sometimes it's just when you have this easy way of interacting with other people through this audio-based community, well, it's just nice, especially if we're talking about people who have just lost sight. And it's quite complicated for them, for example, to return to Facebook. But on the other hand, here is an audio forum, and here is a place for you to communicate with other visually impaired people around the world.
I would guess the learning curve is pretty quick for this, even for people who aren't used to using smart devices.
I think we are by far the best in this regard. I remember this event here in Estonia where we were just, going around with, we had 10 phones or something like this, and we were just giving them out to people and trying to get some feedback at the same time. And there was this 90-year-old gentleman. He comes in very grumpy. He yanks out the phone out of Katja's grip and just sits in the corner quietly trying to figure out what's going on by himself. Then 20 minutes later, he stands up and says, "Yes, I want this." And then he just hands the phone back and leaves. It was a very interesting experience. We have a lot of tutorials and things like that to ease in as well. We also have a portal which helps someone else kind of guide you. For example, if you want to pick radio stations for your grandma, let's say, you could use your laptop to search for the radio stations, and you could just click and then they would appear in Voxmate over the air.
Oh, that's a great feature. I mean, I can't tell you how often Nancy is interacting with her 90-year-old dad and giving him tech support remotely. It's very nice to be able to set that stuff up remotely for those folks.
Yeah, we want to make Voxmate feel like there's something for everyone.
You said you currently have a library of about 20 apps within the Voxmate system. I'm wondering what people are clamoring for next, or what kinds of apps you're planning on adding to the system.
Oh, that's a great question. People want social apps, and we're working on bringing different types of social apps on board. Our first social app was Telegram, allowing you to send instant messages to friends and family. Our second social app was the audio forum, where we hope to create this kind of Voxmate community feeling, and at the same time have this kind of support group for people who just try to figure out how this whole tech thing works. Downstream, we want to enable, big names like maybe Facebook and WhatsApp and other apps as well.
Is there anything we missed that you wanted to tell our listeners about?
One thing that might be of interest is that Voxmate is compatible with Talkback. So as we mentioned, we see Voxmate as a stepping stone between using nothing and then using full-blown screen readers. And so once you get some of the gestures for Talkback, for example, known, or if you are already an avid Talkback user, then you can enable compatibility mode inside Voxmate. Just add one finger to all swipes, and you can use Voxmate alongside Talkback quite comfortably.
Also, the gestures don't interfere with the Talkback system if you put it in that mode.
Yes.
Nice.
In the sense that if you add another extra finger to all swipes, then yes, Voxmate works alongside Talkback.
Well, thank you guys. And what a neat system. I'm really impressed with the concept you came up with for making this a little bit simpler, because many people are intimidated by using smartphones and the number of gestures available and all.
Yeah, we want to make it easier. We want to make it accessible, and we want to accessibilize things that are not accessible today. And we need a way to do that. We need a platform to do that. We need tools to do that. And we're working on all that stuff. Right now, the product of our work is Voxmate, but stay tuned and you'll see some more of our stuff pretty soon.
Great. Can you give a quick demo of how Voxmate works?
Sure, let's do it. So right now, I'll just start Voxmate.
Voxmate.
Phone.
And as I mentioned earlier, you need only 4 main gestures to use the app. You swipe up and down to move between the options. You can think of a Rolodex, so you always end up in the beginning. And then you can swipe right to activate an option and left to go back. So let's just do the first circle through the main menu. I will just swipe down right now.
Entertainment. Social. Games. Resources. Utilities. Early access feedback. Settings.
It's now 20 hours, 5 minutes, and 14 seconds. There are no...
Phone.
Okay, so now I'm back to the beginning. You can think of Voxmate as a browser, where our audio-first apps are like websites, and every time you open the app, it is updated to the latest version. And so today I will show just one app in particular, but first I would like to just do a quick demo with our time tile. So right now I will just swipe up once from the phone app where I'm currently staying.
It's now 20 hours, 5 minutes and 49 seconds.
There are no new messages. Swipe right for details, messages, and weather.
And that's exactly what I will do. I will just swipe right.
Today is October 23rd. Your battery is at 82%. The temperature outside is 3 degrees Celsius, but it feels like -1. Swipe right for more details.
And again, that's what I will do. I will swipe right.
Overcast clouds. 18.5 kilometers per hour northern winds. Gusts up to 37 kilometers per hour. 82% relative humidity. 1012 hectopascals atmospheric pressure. 90% relative cloud cover. The sunrise was 11 hours and 47 minutes ago at 8:18 a.m. The temperature outside is...
It's now 20 hours, 6 minutes and 39 seconds.
And right now I just swiped left to, exit this menu that explained me the weather that it is like now in Estonia. So again, to exit any kind of menu, I just go left.
Voxmate.
Phone.
And we are back in the main menu.
Do you have a choice of voices?
Yes, quite many. So we recommend to install Google Voices, but actually there are plenty of other TTS that work together with Voxmate. And so right now you would have like 2 voices. We have info voice and content voice, and you can set it up for yourself, whichever voice you prefer. And you can also change the speed.
Very convenient.
Okay. So let's now suppose that you want to listen to an audiobook. So how would you do it in Voxmate? As I mentioned previously, we have categories in Voxmate. So I would think that, maybe audiobooks are in the entertainment, and I would just go through the main menu by swiping up and down. Right now, I would just swipe down.
Entertainment.
And here it is. So I would swipe right on entertainment.
World news.
Okay, so I'm in the next menu. I would just again swipe up and down to find audiobooks.
Tune into radio. Listen to podcasts. Music on my phone. Browse YouTube. Listen to audiobooks.
Haha, here it is. I listen to audiobooks. Again, I would swipe right.
LibriVox audiobooks.
So here it is. Currently we support only LibriVox audiobooks, and I would again swipe right on it.
My bookshelf.
So I think I already have a book on my bookshelf. So I would just again go right.
The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
And again, what would I do in Voxmate? So if I would like to choose an option, I always swipe right. I would just swipe right.
Continue listening.
Here I have multiple options. I know this from my experience, so I can listen to it. I can listen to it with a sleep timer and plenty of others. But let's say that right now I just want to listen to an audiobook. So again, I would just swipe right.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes, who was usually very late in the mornings, save upon those not infrequent occasions when he was up all night, was seated at the...
Continue listening. The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Okay, and right now I just swiped left to go back so that I can continue talking to you. And again, to go to the main menu, I just always swipe left.
My bookshelf.
LibriVox audiobooks. Listen to audiobooks. Entertainment.
And here we are, back to the main menu.
Very clean and simple. That's very nice.
You are listening to Eyes on Success. Success, 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 success.
Now for this week's final item, how to learn more about the Voxmate app, how to get a trial version of it, and how to contact Gleb and Katja directly.
Well, if people want to learn more about Voxmate or pick up the app, how would they go about that?
So you can go to voxmate.com. It's voxmate.com. And there is a demo video of Voxmate, for example. And also you can read more about it and then get a link to Google Play as well.
And if people have questions, is there a phone number or email or contact form?
You can always email us at info@voxmate.com. Also, you can find us on Twitter or on Facebook. Again, it will be Voxmate app, and then just ask any of the questions you have there.
And I understand that Voxmate is a subscription service. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works and if there's a way people can demo it before signing up?
Yes. So Voxmate can be downloaded and used for free for a limited time per week, but for quite a long. And if you would like to have an unlimited version, then you can get a subscription.
Well, that's great that people can try it out, because sometimes it's hard to get over the hump of trying out a new system. But it sounds very useful to people who think that smartphones are too complex in general.
We would like to be able to always offer people a way to try Voxmate, and also maybe to, give it some time to understand whether Voxmate is something that's suited for you. And so we actually think that this freemium model is quite perfect for that.
And as usual, you can get all that contact information in the show notes associated with this episode at www.eyesonsuccess.net.
That's it for show number 2150. Next week on Eyes on Success, we'll be talking about the intracortical visual prosthesis project. The goal of the ICVP project is to develop a device and a system that will compensate for blindness by directly stimulating the visual centers with the brain. We'll speak with principal investigators Philip Troik and Frank Lane about how the system works and their search for research volunteers.
Until next week.
You've been listening to Eyes on Success, hosted and produced by Nancy Torpey and Peter Torpey.
You can access the full archive of previous shows, subscribe to the podcast, and much more by going to our website, www.eyesonsuccess.net. If you have questions about anything you've heard on the show or have suggestions for future shows, send an email to hosts@eyesonsuccess.net.
Thank you for listening and have a nice day.